just share this from here. Oh, there it is. Alright. I see myself. Yes, salam. Almost done. Come on. Alright. Is that done? That's done. Alright. Inna alhamdulillah wa kafa. والصلاة والسلام على رسوله المصطفى وعلى عباده الذين ارتضى ومن بهداهم اهتدى وبآثار أهل المدينة اقتفى وبعد فالسلام الله على القوم أهلا وسهلا بكم ومرحبا Juanying Layth, bienvenidos a todos, Khushamadid people, Pakhair Ragle and Swagatam, Swagatam. Right, so alright, Ibrahim, Ahlan wa Sahlan, doing it. Omar, Simon, Naveed, Ahlan wa Sahlan bikum, Ahlan wa Sahlan. Sham, Ahlan wa Sahlan. Assalamu alaikum, Mufti Sahib. Hal Shuma Chaturast. Khubast. It's very well. Right. Come visit NYC. Why not, huh? Why not? Spread the love and with it the fitan and fasad. But why not? So, what is going on, people? What is going on? Oof. Zalim dunya, this fitan, fasad. I log on to social media and I'm seeing these exposés after exposés. Oof. Badi dunya hil rahi hai yaar. There's calamities, tsunamis afflicting people. Ya salam. End of times, Kazi, end of times. Right, so there's on one hand you've got great badi celebrity scholars being hounded and pounded, and on the other hand you've still got that Hasanaat saga going on. You've got, God, yaar, what is going on? Right, so this, well, I suppose, welcome to the world of Muslim drama. That's the thing, people, that's the thing. Smart, oh yeah, I bought this. I thought, let me check it out. It's one of those Fitbits, Versa, I think it's called. I thought, chalo, dekhte hain, let's see what goes down with this thing. Alright. You know, here's something. I was speaking to somebody last week, and he said to me, you know, he's been speaking to different Imams and Du'at and people like that over time. And he said some of them, they said, you know, Mufti, there's no way on earth looking at him that he could have this kind of knowledge. So first of all, that kind of massaged my ego a bit. Why lie, people? Why lie? You know what it is? I love honesty. That's so they said, well, you know, how can it be that this Mufti, just look at him. There's no way on earth somebody looking like him could have this kind of knowledge of the deen. So the only way this is happening is because shayateen, like the actual jinn, are whispering to him. So the jinn give me this kind of knowledge so I can deceive people. Wah, wah. And part of my pact with the jinn, this is legit. This person actually believed this. I mean, he was telling this person who relayed it to me that part of my pact with these jinn is that I do the devil sign. So this one's going out to all my jinn homies out there. Keep it real. Keep it real. Keep the knowledge coming. Keep it coming. Yaar, kuch aur bhi batao. Yaar, tell me some interesting gossip. I'll do more of these signs. Alright, so, God, hilarious. Yaar, why is it just, you know, the Muslim culture, or not all, but many aspects of the Muslim culture, why is it just so dumb? Like, am I the only one that feels this? Or is this like a mutual feeling out there? I don't know. But it's like so bottom set. You're like the special needs kind of SEN group you have. Like, I don't know what sets they are now. It's so much like that, isn't it? And it's like what I call the sunshine group. You know, just crayons, and it's okay. Just give them crayons and don't worry. I'll explain this mas'ala to you. Today we're going to colour in the word haram. Haram. Let's colour it in, everyone. That's the capacity at which so many religious people operate. They just operate at, it's haram, many. Oh yeah, oh. Well, you know, it's like somebody said, I might as well begin this, wah, kadak chai, kadak. Right, so, I might as well begin by addressing, you know, some people, they picked on this issue. So I posted one or two, because I can see my reflection, I mean, in my mirror image, that I've got that on. So I might as well answer. I've obviously not taken it off this week. So I've got some photos up on Instagram where a few people objected that, look, Mufti Saab, they said, Mufti Saab, this one not nice, you know. This one, they said the earring thing for men, toba. Earring in men, instantly the image becomes blurry and I only see female anatomy. So they said only you become a woman if you wear an earring. I thought, acha, aisa hota hai ka? Is that how it works? I'm new to this. You know, I'm a naive, simple, sadagi pasand log hain. I thought, is that how it works? Acha. Right, so when I put that on, I've assumed, don't assume my gender. I can now just walk into the female toilets and say, well, duh, can't you tell? Duh. So people kind of commented saying, so I'm assuming that must work the other way around as well. Deborah's asking that, yeah, so I suppose if somebody takes off the earring, that must clearly just be a man. It must be like, no earring. Qari Sahab? Qari Sahab up? Is that you, Qari Sahab? In the dark? So this is the level at which people operate. That's like full optimum. That's like Einstein level at the religious community level. You know, that's like they're operating at full Einstein capacity there. That's so I thought, chalo, why don't I answer the question for them? Let's take a look. Right, let's see this. What is this issue of earrings or jewellery for men? Jewellery in general. So people, you see, it's quite interesting that I said to people, let me begin by saying this, jewellery is absolutely permissible for men or women. It's absolutely permissible. Let me just begin with the default, you know, this is what I'm selling. This is the product, people. So jewellery is absolutely permissible. It's not haram, definitely not haram, and it is permissible, men or women. Now let's develop the argument slightly. Now, the thing is that different cultures and different communities over time have celebrated their adornment, their kind of jewelries in different ways. So whether that be male or female, so they've done it differently. So if you went back, I mean, if we take a look at things like necklaces, now, I don't know, maybe during certain centuries, women wore necklaces more than men. Arguably, one could say that. If you take a look at things like bracelets or bangles, let's say, bracelets, whatever you want to call them, I would say that arguably there was a period of time that maybe that was definitely equal and men wore as many kind of bracelets, bangles. If you take it right back to even the Roman times and things like that, you can see from the kind of the history that they would wear these kind of straps and things like this, and even throughout the different cultures that you had. And yes, there's been some communities where maybe women have wore it more, and some maybe where men have worn these things more. And the same thing goes with earrings and stuff like this. So this is really just a community cultural issue. That's all it is. Now people would say, did the Prophet wear this? Now, of course the Prophet didn't wear it, but that's not to say it's haram. Okay, you know, just because the Prophet didn't do something does not make it haram. Okay, that's the proper SEN, the bottom set level of arguing that, oh, but did the Prophet do it? But did the Prophet live in England? Oh yeah, he never lived in England. Oh yeah. Right, but did the Prophet eat fish and chips? Did the Prophet, you know, so it's not, this is not how you argue. Okay, I understand that they're arguing at their best capacity, but they've got to up the game. Evolution has already taken place, and you know, Homo sapiens have developed. So the argument is that, did the Prophet prohibit? Did he say these things are haram in Islam? Now, because you have many hadith where the Prophet refrained from certain things. So for example, there is something known as a kind of like a desert lizard. It's not like a small lizard, it's this reptile which some of the Arabs used to eat. So you have a hadith where some of the companions are sitting down eating it, and they offer it to the Prophet, and the Prophet says, no, I won't eat it. So the companion says, "Aharamun huwa? Is it haram?" And the Prophet says, "La." He says, "Ghayra anni lam ajidhu bi ardi qawmi." Except it's not haram, it's just that where I grew up, people never ate it. And he said, "Fa'ajiduni a'afuhu." So I find, like, I have a strong distaste. Like I find it quite nauseating almost. But it's not haram. So taste is a different thing, but tahrim, the sharia, is a different thing. So when you look at the evidences, you see Allah mentioning in the Quran, for example, enticing men by saying that, look, why don't you strive for a paradise? And in this paradise, in this Jannah, we will give men asawira min dhahab. We will give them bangles and bracelets made out of gold. So the one question here is that, well, if bracelets or bangles are haram for men, let's say, then is God cross-dressing men in Jannah? Is he making them dress up as women? because that doesn't make any sense. Now you could say, well, the gold aspect, first of all, I know I've got a separate clip on YouTube where I explain gold is not haram, but let's say if you did believe gold was haram, then that makes sense. You could think, well, okay, he's giving the bangles or bracelets made out of gold. So the gold aspect, but if bangles per se were haram for men, it was something only women wore, then the men would feel really awkward, kind of cross-dressing in paradise, that why are we being dressed up as women? That's like saying to men, I know gold is haram, but don't worry, when you get to Jannah, we'll give you high heels made out of gold. And the men would be like, is this a setup? So the issue is that it doesn't make any sense. Okay, so you have in the Quran seems to intimate that things like bangles and bracelets, men did wear them and they were not haram. The gold discussion is a separate discussion, whether they were made out of gold. The next issue you see is the famous story that the Prophet said to Suraqa. He said to him that, look, Suraqa, how will you be on the day when you receive the bangles, the bracelets from Kisra, the Persian king, as the dynasty collapses? So you can see that, and then in the time of Umar, when Persia, the Sassanid Empire, collapses, Umar actually makes him wear them. He gives them to him and he says, I'm the one, I want to actually place them on you. So was Umar radiallahu anh cross-dressing him? Is that what's going on? So you see these arguments completely fall apart. Then you have a fatwa of Imam Malik where he's asked about young boys wearing earrings made out of gold. So he says the parents shouldn't make them wear earrings out of gold. Now, if the earrings themselves were haram, then Imam Malik would have said they shouldn't make the children wear, the boys, because he's speaking about boys, the boys wear earrings full stop. Why say out of gold? Right, so that's another argument you have. So you have all of these kind of arguments. Another thing is that a lot of these people who assume these things are haram, they're going by an ultra, mega generic statement that the Prophet didn't like, he didn't like the men who were pretending to be women. And he cursed them. He said that those men who are pretending to be women and those women who are pretending to be men. So this is the hadith that a lot of these people use. And so they now extrapolate based on culture, and then extrapolate based on those extrapolations and say, well, anything we deem to be feminine, let's say, in our culture, whatever that may be, we will then deem that to fit in this hadith. But let's just take that argument for a moment. Let's run with it. You have in the Prophet's time, many of the companions and many people in the Arab culture, the men wore kuhl in the eyes, surma. They still do. Many Arabs and even many Pakistanis, for example, in Pakistan they wear surma, the religious people, because they think it's sunnah, although Imam Malik said it's not sunnah. Imam Malik obviously corrected them ages ago, but still they think it's sunnah, but they wear kuhl in their eyes. Now I would say, so which is eyeliner, and they feel that there's no issue with men wearing eyeliner. I mean, in this society, that would definitely be deemed something that women do. Let alone the fact that men wear a thobe. Now, in the West, most people see a thobe as a frock. They do. They actually think that's like a dress, like a woman's dress, like a frock. They understand that Arabs wear this in the Gulf. They wear this kind of frock, but that kind of frock dress is what women wear. I mean, men don't usually walk around in the West wearing a frock, but yet men are happy to kind of wear a frock, thobe, and they're happy to wear eyeliner, and then they say that's absolutely fine. But God forbid, should somebody have a bracelet on or something, they are clearly a woman. And you think, well, okay, my friend. you think it's time for your medicine. You know, this clearly doesn't make any sense. So I thought I'd answer that just to show. I'm not saying people need to do these things, but these things are not haram. And I present an open challenge. Open challenge. You know, these people who object to it, take it to your mashayikh. You know, pitaji, take it to them and ask them, bring me a verse of the Quran or a clear hadith. Clear hadith. Clear hadith. Bring me one. I won't ask you for the second. Bring me one that says it's haram. And I can clearly challenge, this is a challenge from me, that you won't even be able to bring one. Not a single hadith. You won't even be able to make one up. वो भी हम पकड़ लेंगे. That will catch out as well. So bring me just one hadith. And the fact that you can't, you see, me, I refuse to blindly follow the words of men. But others are welcome to do so. If you want to, you can blindly follow those mashayikh that tell you it's haram. I have no objection. It's your life. Live it as blindly as you like. But as to me, I ask for compelling, conclusive evidence. If you have it, present it. Cool. So, Allah. Somebody said, I just can't imagine him being the Imam. Well, I'm not an Imam. Problem solved. Abhe yaar, yahi masla tha. Who wants to be an Imam? I don't want to be an Imam. I'm very clear. Look, this is the thing. All these great people you think of in the past, let me just pause. Pause. All these great scholars that you think of in the past, Imam Malik, Imam Abu Hanifa, Imam al-Shafi'i, Imam Bukhari, all these great Imams, none of them were ever Imams in their entire lifetime. Never could they be an Imam in a mosque. Ever. Imam Malik didn't even go to the mosque for 25 years. He didn't, the last 25 years of his life, he didn't refuse to go to the mosque. But the other Imams who did used to go to the mosque, not a single one of these Imams who you guys everybody has heard their names, let's say Ibn Taymiyyah, even though he's not he's a scholar, I don't consider him an Imam, but chalo, let's say, whoever, all these famous Imams, not a single one of them was an Imam in a masjid. Ever. Savali nahi uthta. They would never have been allowed. They were never allowed. The masjid Imam was always set by the state. And that's as simple as it was. These people never led a single Jum'ah in their entire lives. Right, so, you know, when you talk about these great magnificent Imams and these great people, they never led a single Jum'ah in their lives. Ever. So, don't get me wrong, those people who are Imams, I respect them. I think they're doing a great job. May Allah bless them, preserve them. But I have no aspiration to become an Imam. It's not my style. I don't want to become an Imam. So saying that, I can't picture this guy being an Imam is cool. There's no contradiction. Hadith. Right, let's take some questions. What method do you suggest for finding the true hadith? Right, you've got Mehmet, Ahlan wa Sahlan, Shireen, Ahlan wa Sahlan wa Alaykum Assalam. Right, so the hadith discussion is incredibly interesting. You see, like I said, you've got to understand something. That hadith is consider hadith like a reservoir. A kind of a source of raw material. But not all of the raw material, that even the ones they consider saheeh, is actually usable, or is it of any value? Okay, a bit like, I don't know, like finding diamonds, I guess. You're going to find many things, but as you come across them in nature, much of it is, you can't really use it. It's just, it's unusable. So it's in a similar way, hadith works in a similar way. We have this reservoir of hadith. Now, I do not reject hadith. I do believe that hadiths do have truths in them, but we have to sift through that. The hadith must match up to this criteria of the three criteria, the golden criteria, which is that it cannot clash with reason, it cannot clash with the Quran, and it cannot uproot an established Islamic principle. So ما لم يعارض المعقول ولم يباين المنقول ولم يناقض الأصول. So these three things that it does not go against. That is incredibly important. Another thing to understand, and I've got this whole thing, I've got a video on YouTube. If you haven't seen it, please take the time out and see it. It's called Bukhari Gate. Sahih Bukhari is just a regular book of hadith. It is not on the standard that people have placed it. Okay, Sahih Bukhari has many mistakes in it. It has many problems in Sahih Bukhari. It has many blasphemous hadith in Sahih Bukhari. Not overall. Overall, the collection of Sahih Bukhari that we have today is about 7,700 hadith. But there are a certain percentage which are blasphemous. They contradict with Islam. They, in fact, disrespect our Prophet. They disrespect other prophets. They show our Prophet as scandalous. There are these kind of hadith in Sahih Bukhari. Now, these are clearly mistakes that people have put in there. And unfortunately, the scholars have allowed them to just pass through. And that's because, more than anything, the scholars, you see, it depends which scholars did these things. So you see, there was an era that comes, which is the second wave of muhaddithin scholar. Muhaddith is a scholar concerned with hadith. The second wave of the hadithi project, or the muhaddithin. So the first wave is in the 2nd century and 3rd century of Islam. So you've got, beginning with the people like Imam Malik and those people, they're the best people. Imam Malik, those people, that sound as a pound. I mean, that is the legend, the epic, the heroes of this ummah. After them, you have this huge, this kind of surge in hadith activism. It's almost like hadith but on steroids. So you have the next 100 years there's people, ridiculous claims being made about hadith. All of a sudden people now know 1 million hadith. Where did 1 million hadith even come from? Let's just be honest. Imam Malik, who was the don of this ummah, he never made such a claim. Who are these people coming 100 years later making a claim that they know 1 million hadith? Or 2 generations after Imam Malik. I mean, this kind of stuff, so you start to see people exaggerating because they want a stake in this. They want to be pioneers. There's a lot of human rivalry going on. There's a lot of competition. People want to make a name for themselves, which is all human effort. So this starts to take place, this is the huge wave. So if we consider this, actually let's consider this the second wave. Because the first wave, the emergence of Hadith project, is quite sincere. It's very sincere, I would feel. That's according to me. So I would feel that like the likes of Imam Malik, the likes of Awza'i, and people like this at that stage, Sufyan ibn Uyayna, this stage is a very, what I feel, this is the kind of like the proto stage. So it's all good and pure and kind of like mainly innocent. The second wave you have, which is the hadith on steroids stage that we have, where all of a sudden there's 1 million hadith. There's what I would like to call the Cambrian explosion takes place. Now, with this Cambrian explosion, there's a lot of people making up hadith, because there's no way that all of a sudden, 200 years after the Prophet, people now have 1,000,000 teachings of the Prophet, whereas closer to the Prophet, they only had a few thousand. So that doesn't add up, right? So you're definite that there's a lot of fabrication or manipulation and things like this are taking place. There's a lot of blagging. So even these so-called pious people start to do things like tadlis. And for some reason, the Hadithi scholars turn a blind eye to tadlis. Now tadlis, some of them, like contemporaries of Imam Malik like Shu'bah, declared it haram. Yet, you see, tadlis is when I know the person I'm transmitting from is weak, but I drop him. This is one type of tadlis. I drop him and use the other person's name because I know if I use his name, people are going to catch me out. Now that's just blatant lying. I mean, I consider that as I consider that to be like haram. There's no way that you are purposely misleading people about what the Prophet said. Yet the scholars of Hadith seem to accept all these mudallisin, like, you know, these huge mudallisin like Qatada. Qatada is like epic as a mudallis. A'mash, epic mudallisin. Yet what are they like? I think a couple thousand hadith of his in Bukhari. I mean, the point is that obviously people like Ibn Shihab Zuhri, epic mudallisin of huge epic proportions. Now, there's a lot of questions here. Why do this wave of muhaddithin let this go? I think it's because if they didn't, they couldn't. It was part of the investment of the project that they're invested in. Because they are invested in hadith, if they chuck out all of these narrations, they're not going to have much to bargain with. They're not going to have many chips like this. So they allow it because they too are a part of this game. I'm not saying they weren't sincere, but I feel they weren't angels the way some people make them out. I feel that they, you know, some of them were aware of what they were doing, put it like that. They weren't, maybe they justified it Islamically. Like maybe they thought that they're doing it for a better cause. So they justified it, as religious people do all the time. So whenever people are doing something which others might call corrupt, they will justify it. They'll say, no, this is okay because, you know, it's okay. So I read the other day, like there's a famous statement of Imam Ahmad, and I think this statement is a tragedy. I think it's one of the viruses that have infected this ummah. And that is that this statement that is transmitted, Allahu A'lam if he actually said it, but many of the Hanabila like Ibn Taymiyyah says it, that this, that they say, what is it? Fusaqu Ahl Sunnah, that the criminals, those who commit sins from Ahl Sunnah are awliya are the friends of Allah, and the atqiya, or the pious people of the deviants, of the mubtadi'een, right, are from the enemies, a'da'ullah, and they are from like they are utterly losers. So it doesn't matter how pious, like what they're trying to say is that regular Sunni Muslims, so long as they are Sunni, they can be the worst of people, but they are still the awliya, because they just happen to be born in a Sunni family. And let's say different sects, whether it's going to be the Jabariya, the Qadariya, the Shia, the whatever they are, the different sects, because they're born in that sect, even if they were really pious people, they are doomed and losers, and forever they are the enemies of God. This statement, which allegedly Imam Ahmad said, this is the seed of the problem that we are now facing. You see, because this sows the seeds of hatred. But my point is, you see, when people can justify things, they use religion. So coming back to the Hadith project, you will see that those scholars maybe justified these things. And sometimes they may have done it based on what they thought was good reasons. I'll give you an example, actually. This is an interesting case. I was looking at this the other day. And I'll just share it with you if I bring this up. Now there's a narration, and this will give a little example of what I'm talking about. Just one moment, here it is. Right, now there's a narration which speaks about the... Oh, here it is. It's in Bukhari, and it's in the Musnad of Ahmad. Now, according to this narration, it speaks of the Prophet as somebody who, before prophethood... So Ibn Umar is transmitting this hadith. Now I want you to pay attention to this, because this is really important from two angles. One, I want to show how false hadith have entered our resources. And two, I want to show how the hands were at play as sometimes trying to manipulate things. So if you pay attention, please, focus at this point. Now there is a hadith in Sahih Bukhari that claims that the Prophet before Islam used to eat meat that used to passively participate in pagan practices. So it says that the Prophet used to eat the meat dedicated to Uzza and Layth, and he would partake in all of this. Now what's interesting is this hadith, which is transmitted by Musa ibn Uqba from Salim, from Abdullah ibn Umar, who says that the Prophet ﷺ, he met one day Zayd ibn Amr ibn Nufayl, who's a famous companion, at this place called Baldah. Now he says, and this is before he became a prophet. Now the Prophet at that place, فَقَدَّمَ إِلَيْهِ رَسُولَ اللَّهِ صَلَى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وسلم سُفْرَةً فِيهَا اللَّحْمُ. So the Prophet laid out something with food in there and gave him meat. Gave this to Zayd. Right, gave this meat to Zayd ibn Amr. Now Zayd ibn Amr فَأَبَى أَنْ يَأْكُلَ مِنْهَا. He refused to eat from it, and he said, إِنِّي لَا آكُلُ مِمَّا تَذْبَحُونَ عَلَى أَنصَابِكُمْ. He said, I don't eat from this meat which you sacrifice to your idol gods, your pagan. This is Zayd ibn Amr telling the Prophet this. This is in Bukhari. Right, so وَلَا آكُلُ إِلَّا مِمَّا ذُكِرَ اسْمُ اللَّهِ عَلَيْهِ. I only eat that which is sacrificed to God alone. He's rejecting the Prophet's food and telling the Prophet, at this time the Prophet isn't a prophet, he's telling the Prophet ﷺ that I don't eat your meat because your meat, you guys are sacrificing it to pagan gods. Now, you see, this is an interesting example because this hadith is blasphemous. This hadith shows that the Prophet used to partake in idol worship. He used to partake in, passively at least, sacrificing to the idol gods, doing these things. And I'll add to that in just a moment. Now the interesting thing is this hadith is also transmitted from the same Musa ibn Uqba and going from Salim to Ibn Umar by three other hadiths supporting the exact same wording in the Musnad of Ahmad. Now what's interesting is Bukhari then brings another narration in Kitab al-Manaqib, which is transmitting from Musa, but this time the guy transmitting from him is a weak narrator. His name is Fudail ibn Sulaiman. He's actually weak and rejected. Ibn Ma'in, Abu Zur'a, Abu Hatim, everybody says this guy's major problematic. Fudail, his name is. But Fudail changes the wording. You see, Fudail says in his narration that he says, instead of فَقَدَّمَ إِلَيْهِ رَسُولَ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وسلم, he mentions, he says فَقُدِّمَ إِلَيْهِ. That you see that this food was presented to the Prophet. And in the other narrations in Musnad of Ahmad, they say قَدَّمَ رَسُولَ اللَّهِ إِلَى زَيْد. And he adds فَقُدِّمَ, and he mentions إِلَيْهِ, to the Prophet. That this food, he switches it. He says that they presented this food to the Prophet. Either Zayd ibn Amr, which doesn't add up because Zayd ibn Amr wasn't a pagan, but that's how the wording is. He kind of switches it to say no, that the verb, he switches the verb to say no, that it's being passed to. So it's not that he passed it, it was passed to. He kind of changes the word to show that this was passed to the Prophet and the Prophet rejected it. But the other narrations all seem to suggest, they all not suggest, they clearly state that the Prophet passed it to Zayd ibn Amr, who then says to the Prophet that I don't accept your meat because it's sacrificed. Now there's two things to see here. One, the majority of all transmitters transmitted it like that the Prophet was partaking in pagan practices. Now that is blasphemous, and it goes against our understanding of Islam, because there were many people who weren't partaking in pagan practices. You have people like Zayd ibn Amr as an example. You have many famous Arabs, Qus ibn Sa'ida, a very famous, somebody who always spoke about the Hanafiya, the kind of Dinul Hanif. You had many Christians and Jews that were also present. You had many of these things and influences. So we know that that was not true, generally speaking. Now, what's interesting is some narrator is manipulating the hadith to suit our general understanding. Now, although I respect that, fair enough, even though he's a very weak narrator, but I respect that, and Bukhari's brought it probably because of that reason, just to kind of get a bit of a balance. But what is evident is he is manipulating. It seems that he's manipulating this text, and it makes, if a person can manipulate this, they can manipulate other texts. So that's an interesting point, and you get a few more of these, and I'll mention something here as just a token note whilst we're on this discussion. You have Hisham, Hisham ibn Urwa, who from him Haytham is transmitting that the Prophet named his children after the false gods in Jahiliyyah, those who were born in Jahiliyyah. So you have him saying that, he says that those who say Tayyib, the Prophet's sons' names were Tayyib and Tahir, he says that they've got it wrong. This is Hisham saying this. He says this is the names they gave them in Islam. He says their names were Abdu Munaf. Munaf was the goddess, like the servant of Munaf, and in another riwayah, Abdu Shams or Abdul Uzza, the servant of Uzza, the goddess. And he says the Prophet named them that, but that's because they were born pre-Islam. Now it's interesting that you see, now this obviously clashes with the other narrations, but that's Hisham, the same guy who says the Prophet married Aisha at the age of 6. This is one big problem, This is why Imam Malik had a big issue with Hisham. He said, we don't accept what Hisham says. This Hishu, same Hishu, from the riwayah to do with the age of Aisha. So my point is that, you see, studying the science of hadith, I feel that you can't just take a dogmatic approach. You have to have a very comprehensive, a very analytic, evaluative approach in looking at this science, in making sure everything adds up. And I think a huge amount of this needs to be re-evaluated. Problem is, who will do it? Who will do it? Now, people, let's take some other questions. What's going on? Are we supposed to ask questions here? Oh, you can. Somebody said some Rawi used the word Fulan ibn Fulan. Yeah, they use that sometimes to hide the name. If miracles don't exist, then is there any point in making dua, as Allah won't intervene? He never has, i.e. no miracles. Yeah, but just because some said it's true doesn't mean it's so. Imam Mark is in the house. Ahlan wa sahlan, Imam Mark. Right, so I'm just trying to pause some of these so I can read these questions. How do you define Islamic principles? Okay. Islamic principles are those principles that have been established by an overall, what they call an istiqra'i study. An istiqra' means a comprehensive study of Islam. So many things point out that from it you can you kind of induce this principle, that this is a principle in Islam. So for example, the principle that harm is always, harm ought to be removed. Now that is a principle, that al-darar yuzal. Now that is a principle in Islam. Al-mashaqqa tajlibu at-taysir, that hardship necessitates ease. This is a principle. So when you study so many different rulings, this principle definitely is manifest. So you see that, oh right, this is definitely a clear thing that Islam wants. So these principles in the Sharia, I think by and large, a lot of them are agreed upon by most scholars, but they disagree upon their application. So they might agree on them in principle, but disagree when it comes to application. So uprooting these is an issue. Right, so what else is going on, people? What about hadith brought by Imam Bukhari in Adab al-Mufrad? However, whoever is proud of nasab, then let his father's private parts be cut off, and then Hasan al-Basri, through which so many chains. Yeah, I mean, these things don't seem to be valid hadith, although the meaning of, like, people shouldn't be proud of their nasab, that does come through from the teachings of the Prophet, that he did he tamed down the whole Arab obsession with lineage, in trying to say, oh, I'm the son of so-and-so, I'm the son of so-and-so. And I think this is really interesting. And I mean, what I was going to say is, I think what's really interesting is, part of my study into Islam revisionism, by looking at the claims that a lot of these modern day Islam revisionists have been making, it's forced me, and there's some people we're working together. There's Mufti Maravia, those of you that know Mufti Uthman Maravia from North England, he's kind of working with me. We've got a collab going on there. So Mufti Maravia, if you've tuned in, right, you're doing it right. So we're collaborating with one or two others on these matters and looking into them. It's forced us to reevaluate a lot of what we thought we knew as well, and try and weigh things up. So something that has clearly emerged seems to be, like I mentioned before, this whole thing of the Arab history pre-Islam. Now it seems very clear that there is a strong, rich history, Arab history pre-Islam, that it's important to understand in order to get to the point of Islam and see why things move forward in a particular direction. But from that, we come to learn that there was a huge Arab presence always in the Middle East. This is something which has been heavily undermined by Islamic sources. Maybe not intentionally. Maybe some parts were done out of ignorance, and some parts maybe many people did know, but they just didn't feel it was important. I don't know what their motives were, but they haven't highlighted. So many Muslims think Arabs, Arabia. This is how it was, and then with Islam, Arabs spread. That's actually not true. It seems that there was a huge Arab presence in the Middle East, from the Levant right through to Iraq, right down and into Arabian Peninsula. But there were many, many more Arabs. There were millions of Arabs in the Middle East, and only a few 100,000 in the Arabian Peninsula. Most of the Arabs did not live in the Arabian Peninsula. Now that's actually something which, okay, may not make so much of a difference, but it changes the picture of things. So you start to see, okay, that's interesting. And there were and most of those millions of those Arabs that were in the Levant, which is modern day Lebanon, around the Palestine area, you've got Syria around that area, Iraq, Jordan, all of these areas, that Middle East region was a huge part of it. There was they weren't just exclusively Arabs, but there were a bulk presence of Arabs there. Heavily outnumbering the Arabian Peninsula, and most of these Arabs were all Christians. There were Christians, and many amongst them were Jews. Now this is something that is not mentioned as much or taught well in our sources. Now once you start to understand that, you then realize why And I want to mention this point, so pay attention. Why the arguments in the Quran are so addressed to the Jews and to the people of the book. Because, you see, what we didn't realize was the Arabic-speaking people, or people who could understand Arabic, they were by and large the people of the book. But the non-Arabian Peninsula, the non-peninsular lot were people of the book. And it seems very likely that looking at some of these arguments, so for example, let me share this argument with you. People like Patricia Crone, for example, in her, she has a few books, but she raises this argument. And she has some in-depth, and these people have been doing some really solid, like, I mean, boy, these people have committed their lives to Islam. I'm serious. Not in a way to become Muslim, but to study the hell out of it and to find all these problems that they could with the Islamic sources. And they've done a thorough job. And I'm telling you honestly, I mean, I'm not saying that it can't be answered, but what I'm saying is there are some truths to some things that they are saying. It's not like, it's not like an absolute nonsense. Like some Muslim scholars, most Muslim scholars are not familiar with their works. No, not Hagerism. I'm not talking about Hagerism, by the way. So Patricia Crone moved on from Hagerism. Hagerism was in the 70s, a movement that was like the prototype, where they began by saying, look, so they kept to these principles. They said, we're only going to take from Islam what can be proven through facts, through archaeological facts, or through other transmissions, or through coins, or through writings, inscriptions. We're not going to just take the Muslims' word for it. That was their principle, which they stood true to right till the end. But Hagerism was this belief that Islam was actually an offshoot from Judaism. And it stayed like that. And later Muslims gave it this spin of a new identity of Islam. Now, some of that they stuck to, but Patricia Crone and some of these other people, they've really modified a lot of that argument. And people like Fred Donner. And so it's not this simple Hagerism. Like if you read their book on, so for example, Meccan Trade or other books. Now they raise a lot of questions. And they seem to have done their homework. So one of the questions that they raise is about Mecca. And they feel that Mecca is definitely made up by Muslims. So this got us looking into a lot of these things, and we've been researching. We're still researching this. This is going on. This has been spanning a little while. Me and, like I mentioned, Mufti Maravi and 1-2 others. Now, our conclusions so far are that, you see, Mecca, I do believe Mecca did exist, but Mecca was much smaller than we think. And it was not a significant town. It was an insignificant town. And it only gained its significance with the rise of Islam. So, and it was nowhere near as large as Muslims thought it was. Like, I think Muslims say maybe it had a population of 15,000 or something. I don't think that at all. I think by looking at the evidence, it would have been a very small town. Maybe a few thousand at best. And it wasn't part, I don't think it was part of the trade route. I think they probably used to annex themselves to the trade route somewhere close to Ta'if. So they would probably meet it somewhere, because Ta'if is part of the trade route, as was other places, Medina, Yathrib and Khaybar, and these places were. But Mecca never appears on any of these documents, even I'm talking about the non-Arabic documents. So it seems that Mecca, in my understanding, did exist, because I just find it very difficult to believe that it was fabricated. But I do believe that it may have not been as significant of a town as people assumed in later times. So we assumed it was like the London of Arabia. It was nothing like that. I think it was just a small town. And hence the resistance to it, because they would have thought, who's this? You know, who are these people trying to take us over and trying to spread their religion? So that's one thing. And I feel that the Meccan people, when they objected to the Prophet, they brought down, because the Prophet told them that he was from this line of prophets, these Abrahamic prophets, and that they brought to debate him, because the Prophet spends, a considerable amount of his life, the majority of his prophetic life in Mecca, at least 13 years out of the 23 years. Now, they would have brought Jewish people, Jewish scholars, down from the rest of the Arabic-speaking world to debate the Prophet. And hence, a lot of these verses that are Makki are actually addressing Jews. Because otherwise, people say, well, there wasn't a Jewish presence in Mecca. You see, because this is one of the things that Patricia Crone argues. She says, well, it doesn't make sense. There weren't many Jews in Mecca. So why were some of these Makki surahs arguing against the Jews? The other thing is, she picks up on this point of agriculturalism, and she mentions that Mecca didn't have any agriculture. So why is the Quran, the Makki surahs, addressing agriculturalists? So why is Allah saying things like, oh, don't you see there's jannatin ma'rushatin wa ghayru ma'rushatin wa fawakih, and there's all these different fruits, and you have rumman, and you have pomegranates, and you have zaytun, and you have all these kind of fawakih, but Mecca didn't have these things. And then she brings the point that, especially the verse in Surah An'am, where Allah says, وَآتُوا حَقَّ, about rumman wa zaytun, about general, fruits and things like this, but names then pomegranate and olives, and states وَآتُوا حَقَّهُ يَوْمَ حَصَادِهِ, and give from it the day you harvest it. But the interesting thing here, the interesting thing here is that she highlights as well that, but why is the Quran saying this when there was no olives in the Arabian Peninsula? And there was no agriculture in Mecca, and there definitely weren't olives. Olives didn't grow in the Arabian Peninsula. They only grew around the Mediterranean and up to the lower part, but not in the Hijaz or below and things like this. There were no olives. So why is the Quran saying to give from olives and addressing them when this is not an issue, and it's naming olives? Now, this would have been because the people they brought to debate the Prophet were people from the Levant and from those regions, from the Arabian, from the Ghassani kind of like remnant of their dynasties, and you have the Manadhira, the Lakhmids and their dynasty. So these two huge major dynasties that were mainly Christian and Jewish, that lived in the Middle East, not in the Arabian Peninsula, and they were all Arabs, and they far outnumbered the Arabs in Arabia. They would have most likely come to Mecca to debate the Prophet. Now, because we know there is a link between Mecca and the capital, let's say the capital of the Lakhmid dynasty was Hira, which takes on this Arabic script, and it's the cultural capital. And we know there is a link between Hira and Mecca. And hence, you have the brother-in-law of Abu Sufyan, who brings first the Arabic script that we have today. We're calling it Arabic. I mean, it was Nabatean. But he brings that to Mecca. So my point in this is that there's certain narrations that we find in our tafsir, and you'll find it in Razi's tafsir and another tafsir, that they mention that this Suratul An'am was revealed in one go. And why? Because it would have been a debate. That there was a debate taking place, that people were coming to challenge the Prophet, people who were of Jewish background, who knew the Jewish texts, who knew the prophets of old, who knew these things. Christians were coming. So these verses were reminding them that, look, do you even, yes, you do have things, you have blessings from God. Do you even give from the harvest? Do you even, are you even grateful for the fruits, the blessings, the rizq that Allah has showered upon you? So that was the angle of these ayat. So it's important to know some of these things. I thought I'll mention some. And another interesting point, this is definitely worth mentioning on this, that you see, the argument that some of these Islam revisionists are using is that Mecca was reinvented by Abdul Malik ibn Marwan and Hajjaj and his Abdul Malik's son. You've got Walid, and these people, they invented and played that role in creating the recreation of the Kaaba in Mecca. Now, I would say that if that be true, you see, my proof for why this can't be true, I have looked at a lot of these evidences about Petra and things like this, but the reason why this can't be true is because if you study our Islamic history, there is an early split, a major split, between the key protagonists of Islam. You have the main body of Muslims, you have the Shia, you have the Khawarij. These main splits occur very early on during the Khilafah al-Rashida, if you want to call it that, during Sayyidina Ali's time. You have this split. So these sources, so the Shia have a rich tradition which they have been passing down, and they hated the Bani Umayyah. They hated the rulers of Bani Umayyah. They hated, all these kind of Umayyads, and they considered them to be oppressors, and they rebelled against them on certain occasions, whether it's going to be in the version of Zayn al-Abidin, or it's going to be beginning with Hussein radiallahu anhu, Zayn al-Abidin, or Imam Zayd, or whoever you want to say. They had this struggle always going on. And then you had the Khawarij, who still continue till today, the Ibadiyah and the Shia. How can it be? And these people transmit so many things. So the Shia will say, oh, Bani Umayyah made this up. They added this to the Salah. They added that. All this exists. How can it be that these three sources, if we triangulate them, they agree that the Qibla was in Mecca? You see, it doesn't make any sense that because they would have definitely used that argument. They would have pounced on that argument. Can you imagine the Imams of the Aimma of the Shia tradition? Imam Ja'far, he would have loved that to go on about why they've even changed the Qibla. The Qibla used to be in Petra, for example. But the fact that they agreed on this thing demonstrates that couldn't have been fabricated. However, yes, some of the other pointers do need to be looked into, and we need to start evaluating. Like I said, so for example, the trade thing, the thing like, okay, why were they being addressed as agriculturalists? And like I said, it makes sense now, because they would have been bringing these other Arabs to debate the Prophet, these Jewish Arabs and Christian Arabs. Cool, I hope that makes sense about that. I know there's been a lot of people who are looking into this. It really baffles them. But cool, let's take some other questions, people. Let's take some other questions. Bahut ho gaya, huh? A lot of this seriousness. Let's see what's bothering the Ummah. Why did most Malikiya consider it a breaker of wudhu? What is it? What is it? Somebody mentioned about the Abyssinian history. I think there are some documentation about Muslims. There is some documentation about Muslims that migrated there. Yes, there is. Madhiy. Oh, madhiy. Acha. Our brother is the question is about the fluid. It's a fluid question, people. Very fluid. Does the madhiy break? Madhiy is pre-seminal fluid, right? Does it break the wudhu? Well, I mean, generally, the understanding of madhiy is that it happens when a person is slightly excited, you know. this one, you know, slightly excited, you know. So, at that stage, a person, you see, what I would say is the way Imam Malik dealt with this, and the Maliki madhab, especially through the Iraqi transmission, is that, look, any sexual activity, just repeat your wudhu. So, because it's something that doesn't seem, it allows you to get back in, it's a ritual to get back into a spiritual state of mind, that's all. So I would say that's fine, that makes sense. And usually these kind of things only happen at that stage, unless it's just happening. Unless you're just walking around, it's happening, people. In which case it's a medical issue. You should visit your doctor, you know, doctor. So, in that case, it wouldn't break the wudu if it was a medical issue. And I don't consider these things to be impure, by the way. They're not impure, they just, they do break the wudu because of what they're associated with, as in the whole, the sexual experience. And what's interesting is, it's so, check this out, this is so weird. Right, it's almost impossible, almost, I mean you do find it, but hardly, seldom discussed about women and this issue. So women having vaginal moisture, or in that sense, kind of emitting a kind of a fluid when they're excited, let's say, that when they're excitement, no Fiqh book generally touches up on that at all. I mean, they just don't mention it. It's like they don't even cover the issue. Very few people have actually covered it. I mean, I know Abul Walid al-Baji, one of the Maliki legends, he had to be a Maliki, huh? Maliki legends, he discussed the issue, and you'll have like Hattab mentions it in his huge commentary in this, so you've got to sift through an entire commentary to find it. But generally, they just don't, like, so people just don't know what to do. And they're just like, well, the women can figure it out. And it's like, well, but when you're covering all these other things in the book, why aren't you covering that? And most fiqh books refuse to just cover it. Like, they just don't, and that's a really strange thing. Because I remember many years ago, during my studies, when I went on a search to find this, you're like, Cha, does this exist in the books? Let's find it. And it's impossible to find. And then eventually, I mean, you can track it if you search real hard. But the point is that but the issue would be, I feel that wouldn't, in my understanding, that wouldn't break wudu, vaginal fluids or moisture, unless it was associated with sexual practice, and then it would be the same as for the men. Cool. Find what, you naughty. Well, there's many a myths. So, what is going on? So, you, nutty. Right, so, speaking of nutty, we've got the saga, continues, people, of Hasanaat. I don't know if you guys have watched his replies, some of his replies on Instagram. He's done some responses and back and forth with Muhammad Hijab. And Muhammad Hijab and Ali Da'wah are like, I mean, not at each other, but with him. They're going at it, at the neck. But the strange thing is, only last year, Ali Da'wah made a video defending. You nutty. But I think I suppose he says, well, I don't know. I thought they were genuine back then. Cello. See, the problem is, shall I tell you the problem? Shall I tell you? Yeah, your problem, kya? What is the heart of the problem? Let me pour it out for you people. Let me make it very clear. See, the problem is, you know, holy people, they set their standards superhuman, right? And the truth is, they're all corrupt. They're all corrupt. This is the truth. So, you know, now some more than others, arguably, of course, some more than others. Some are slightly less corrupt, but they're all corrupt, but some more than others. Now, the problem is when you set your standards so high in front of the dunya, when you set your standards so high, then it's only a matter of time before parda, you know, before this veil is shattered. Parda hai, parda hai, parda. And then when this veil is removed, toba, toba, toba. Oof. The wrath. Damn, people, I have to say, people on social media are savage. They're like wild beasts. They're like the hills of eyes kind of on social media. In real life, they're like, oh, have a good day to you too. And on social media, they're like, devour their meat. They're like, so people are ruthless, honestly. And I think this is the issue. Even these people, look, I read somewhere there's, you know, there was some comment. I don't know. I'm just reading what the comments are saying on social media. Somebody had said, because Ali Dawa had made a video against these people, and somebody said, well, there's an alleged documentary coming out against him. And I thought, wow, nobody is safe, huh? There was the whole thing, it dragged in Mufti Meng, there's other scholars, all these people, and the problem is what? The problem is this fake piety standards. If only people would just be real. You know, yeah. This reminds me of Momin Khan Momin. Allah, the legend. Momin Khan Momin was a contemporary of Ghalib people. The legend Ghalib. And he says, Umar kati hai ishke butan mein Momin. Says, Umar kati hai ishke butan mein Momin. That this life we've spent in the love of these goddesses. Obviously, he's speaking, Momin Khan Momin is speaking about beautiful women of his age. He says we've spent this life in the love and the dedication to these goddesses. That Umar kati hai ishke buta mein Momin. आखिरी वक्त में क्या खाक मुसलमान होंगे? He says, now that we've reached our final time, like hell are we going to become true Muslims? This was, you know, I tell you, these legends, people might kind of say, oh, these poets and whatever, but they had wisdom to them, I tell you. These people, they knew. You know, they were kind of in their own way, just being, at least, trying to just be real as who they were. Whether people agree with it or disagree with it, but the point is they weren't setting fake standards. So, now Hasanaat has come out and he said, well, look, so what? I was, and I gotta say, I watched his clip today, I think it was, or was it yesterday? I watched his clip about, he said, look, those of you said I was an atheist. I was an atheist. He said, and I was doing ruqya. He says, so what? There's a hadith in Bukhari that some of the companions said we used to do ruqya as a kafir. I thought, wah. I like it. You know, I like the dalil. You know, now this spirit of his I like. But if it wasn't for the fake preaching before, the fake, you know, the whole, him and Rukhsana ji, the whole, you know, oh, couple goals, oh, the fake, all that drama. If it wasn't for that, this side of his, I'm starting to like now. I'm thinking, what? confidence, huh? He goes, so what if I was a kafir? He goes, so? There's a hadith in Bukhari. This is, wow. So it's really going back and forth. And he said, you see, he was discussing Muhammad hijab, and he said, and he refers to Muhammad hijab as Muhammad niqab. And then he starts calling him Nikki. He says, you know, guys, leave Nikki alone. And he keeps referring to, because first I thought, who's he referring to as Nikki? Who's Nikki? Then I realized, acha, Nikki, he means, instead of Muhammad hijab, Muhammad niqab. I thought, you harami. And Muhammad hijab's proper gunning for him. And Muhammad hijab, to be fair, he's got too emotional, I think, over the thing. And he's really, but I feel that, look, in all honesty, the game that he's playing, this Hasanaat, because my issue that I mentioned before very clearly was the extortion, the conning people, robbing money from people, falsely using charities, taking 300,000 in one episode, taking God knows how much other funds. All of these things were the issue. What he did in his personal life, to me as a person, doesn't bother me. I know it bothers other people. They're like, you know, what the hell? They're like, huh? They're like, ménage à trois? Triangle? Cha. The three gods, three murti, the Trinity. Tova. But you see, to me, the issue was more that they broke people's trust in things like religion by conning them out of their wealth. And sometimes you see, when people give money, they don't have money. You know, some bechara probably didn't have much money and saw the picture of that, you know, that dying child that she had, Rukhsana ji, had on her post. And they probably thought, you know, what the hell, I'll give this money to that child. You know, because, and mashallah, may Allah reward all those people. May He shower them with infinite wealth. Ameen. Because people give, you know, there is goodness. You know, in the common Muslim, I'll tell you something. In the common Muslim out there, the non-practicing one, there is goodness in their heart. You can see it, that they, you know, when they see some humanitarian cause, when they see these things, that's true Iman, if you ask me. And these people, they dug into their pockets and gave them money. Little do they know that they're just paying for a few bottles. They're paying for their vodka and God knows what else, their business class tickets and their life of luxury and chilling, and, you know, they're paying for that. So this one not nice, my friend. This one, taklif hoti hai, taklif. So I feel that's my issue with, and I think the way Hasanaat is playing it, I think he's just stretching it out, and he's hoping it's just going to die a death. And I think, this is my theory, this is me being a theorist, people. I think that his Rukhsana ji, his wife, I don't know about the second wife, Sarah, but I definitely think about Abdullah. I think she's not even in the UK. I think she legged it a while back. Yes. Because you see, I was thinking about this. I was thinking, you know, if, you know, like sometimes you put yourself in somebody else's shoes and you think, well, if I was in this person's shoes, what would I do now? And I thought that, look, it's definite, because they were conning people. They definitely speculated this before it happened. Definitely, guarantee that last year, when everything is as smooth as you can imagine, they all, and I feel all of them, I feel that Sarah is just as implicated as, you know, she's complicit. I think maybe she's probably on the lesser end than the other two. The other two, I think, are the main. And Rukhsana Abdullah is 100% guilty. There is this, you know, what I don't like is this, oh, she's a woman, so, oh, woman, oh, oh. So she must be innocent. No, naughty, this one, not nice, So she was definitely guilty. She was in on the con, big style. Have you watched her clip about the fake acting when she's dressed up as a client and pretending to be possessed? She's going, yeah. Hi, Abdullah. And this year's Oscar-nominated performance goes to... So, I think that last year, this is my theory, check this out, people. I think that when things were going smooth, they must have discussed amongst themselves, what if we get caught? What would we do? Because think about it, that's a rational conversation to have. And I think at that time, they would have speculated contingency plans. And I think one of those contingency plans is to be set up abroad. Maybe towards the Gulf somewhere. And I think as the hit the fan, his wife, Abdullah, and kids are out of the country. I definitely think that. That's my speculation. I could be wrong. And that clip where she's making a video? I don't believe that's her. That's definitely... How did her eyebrows change and the positioning of her eyes from the center of her nose changed? But the voice is her. I think the voice, she made a recording wherever she was and sent it over, and they just put it over this, voiced over this other lady in a niqab making a recording. I don't think she's in the UK. I think she's long gone. And I think the reason she's not open about it is because if they confess, then that would speed up the police investigation. But I think right now the police, London Met, are probably just taking their time. They're probably thinking it's not a priority. But if they think she's a flight risk, they will, I'm pretty sure, speed up the priority. This is my brain at play. Yeah, I mean, these people are definitely fraudulent, but hey, interesting, huh? Drama goes on. So what else, people? What else is going on? Shall we take some other questions? Is there something else to add to the masala section? Oh, there was a bit of masala I heard. And that was that somebody asked about the story of Yunus alayhi salam in the whale. I have answered that already, so if you check YouTube, I will actually go through the story of Sulaiman alayhi salam very quickly about did he neglect his prayers and did he waste wealth and stuff like that, which is a misunderstanding, but I'll explain that briefly. Abu Dawood narrated that the person who had put the evil eye on another would be ordered to do wudhu. These hadith are not authentic. And the issue is that there is no such thing as the evil eye. You have to understand, people, that, this ruqya thing. Let's speak a bit about ruqya. This Hasanaat thing has been a wake-up call for ruqya. I'm going to be very clear, loud and proud when I say this. I say it loud and proud. That the Muslim community is much themselves to blame. They are just so ridiculously self-entrenched in these mythologies and superstitions. And look, demons don't possess people. Relax. There is no such thing as jinn possession. It clashes with the Quran. It clashes with the Quran. The Quran teaches you that the shaitan himself will say on the Day of Judgment, in Surah Ibrahim, that he will say on the Day of Judgment that all I did was just insinuated. I had no control. مَا كَانَ لِي عَلَيْكُمْ مِنْ سُلْطَانٍ. I had no control over you. That, all I did is I just called you guys. I invited you. Hey, why didn't you do this? You did it. Now, if this is shaitan, he can't physically make anybody do anything. How can demons and shayateen come into you, make you do things, make you kill people, make you cause physical harm, make you do these? This is nonsense. It's against the Quran. And it's obviously dumb anyway. It's a dumb belief. But I mean, the point is it's against the Quran to start off with. There isn't a single saheeh sarih hadith. Bring me one hadith that is not being critiqued. One hadith that has not been critiqued. One. Right, so if you bring me one hadith, there isn't a single hadith that hasn't been critiqued. They're either all made up, weak, or they've been critiqued. There isn't a single thing. So how do you commute to Falak? So Robin is saying, I don't believe in jinn possessions, but I believe in evil eye of envy and jealousy. Right, now okay, now I want to say that, you see, there's no such thing as demonic possessions in the Quran. It goes against the Quran, it goes against the Sunnah. Now, there's no such thing as magic happening to people like that. Magic, what we call magic, is basically the inability of a certain people to explain a phenomenon. So if you took technology to a certain people that were primitive to that, it's magic. That's all magic is. Magic is the inability of certain people to explain a phenomenon. It doesn't mean that it's actually done through magical terms. So in the past, what people did was either things like, which they still do today, like hypnosis, through the power of suggestion, through things like this, which is still done today. People do things like hypnosis and things like that, power of suggestion. That was one. There were three angles for magic in the past. That was one. The other angle was using chemicals and potions to influence things. So, for example, using natural minerals that are mood stabilizers, like lithium, let's say. People using certain things that contain natural, and they would say, give this person this to drink and he'll become a better person. And because his mood stabilized, he became a better person, and therefore it's magic. Things like this, for example. So things which are actual, there was an actual causative element. And the third was simply trickery and sleight of hand, that people tricked people, like the great Indian rope trick. It was a trick, but to the onlooker it was perceived as magic. So this is all magic is. There is no actual hocus pocus, like I pick up a doll, a voodoo doll, and I start stabbing it with pins, and you over there start doing your break dance, and it doesn't work like that. This is all nonsense. Okay, it does not exist, and neither did the Prophet ever have magic done on him. That is so silly and ridiculous. Once again, clashes with the Quran and disrespects our Prophet. That, you know, so that's to clarify the magic end. As far as the evil eye is concerned, the evil eye simply means, it's a synonym for envy. Alright, now people use it culturally, and yes, sometimes people, because they're envious of something, they may act out in a certain way to harm a person, but they may not even want to harm the person, but subconsciously they become envious. But they actually act out. Right, what they don't do is, it's not, so as if you mean by envy and jealousy, that's correct, that's fine. If you mean by it, like I just look at somebody and go, evil eye, evil eye, evil eye, and that guy gets cancer. Right, that's not the evil eye. Right? That just means that you're lacking in intellect. Right, there's no, because that's not how cancer is caused. That's not how, oh, he looked at this house and the house dilapidated. Oh, he looked at his car and thought, oh, I like his car, and then the guy had a car accident. This, although there could be certain, you see, there could be other links. So, for example, a person, like if there was direct communication, like imagine, I give you an example. Imagine somebody said they praised something. Like imagine you had like you're driving a flashy car and somebody said, wow, that's such an expensive car. Now, when they say that, you become conscientious about the car. Now, because you've become conscientious, you're not driving subconsciously, like you normally would. You're driving very conscientiously, and you may become nervous. And because you're nervous, you end up crashing the car. Now that could happen, and that these kind of things do happen. But that's not because the person looked at you and gave these magic rays and destroyed your car, but that's because it actually had an impact by you reacting. So these kind of things do happen. Okay, so I hope that gives some explanation. Yeah, what else is going on? Let's... And in abandoned houses. There's no... You know, Muslims seriously need to grow up with all these demonic possessions and magic. But the problem is people won't let go. The truth is that people just will not let go. It doesn't matter. Like you say whatever you want to people, they just will not let go. And they get offended that how dare you... how dare you say magic does not exist? Right? And the truth is that, you know, all these guys that send all these jinns and do all these magic hocus pocus, they're always broke. I mean, like, they're always themselves begging for money. Like the most powerful ones in Pakistan and India and Bangladesh and those countries, they're incredibly poor. Like if you had all this power at your disposal, I mean, if I had jinns working for me, I'd be loving it. Then you'd see the true meaning of corruption. Let's just be honest. See, power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. So, if I had jinn at my disposal, boy, then people would regret it. So, this is the thing. So, these kind of things don't really happen. Somebody said, في البيان والتحصيل وقد صنع لرسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم سحر فلم يعرفه حتى أخبرته الشاة. Now, you see, first of all, there's many transmissions sometimes, people transmitting from Imam Malik and from other people. Imam Malik, in some narrations, he doesn't seem to buy into all of this. And other narrations, he doesn't normally comment about this magic thing. Bayan wa Tahsil, so far from what I just read there, I haven't read that narration, but I'll check it up. It's saying that, look, the Prophet had magic done onto him and he didn't know until a sheep told him. A sheep. I mean, that just sounds ridiculous in and of itself. A sheep came and told the Prophet of God. So the Prophet of God himself is so, you know, defenseless that a sheep can figure it out and he can't figure it out. You know, I mean, these kind of things are stupid and they're disrespectful to the Prophet of God. And it's embarrassing that Muslims say these things, and it's even worse that they actually say them aloud. At best, just say it in your mind. I mean, don't say these things out loud. They sound dumb. Now, look, first of all, I don't believe Imam Malik really got involved in that kind of a debate, and a lot of his fatwa seem to contradict these things. As Ibn Ashur, the great Maliki legend, writes that, look, these things don't have a reality. But even if you found a narration, let's just say you found a narration from Imam Malik that said it, let's say, and Imam Malik is not God. You know, just because Imam Malik was a person who did the best he could in his day and age, which was 1200 years ago. So if you're holding somebody to account for 1200 years ago, using the best of his knowledge, and maybe he thought, look, okay, maybe, like, first of all, I'm not sure this narration is even true, but let's take it at face value and assume it's true. Even if Imam Malik thought, look, okay, maybe these things exist, I don't know, and maybe. So now, because that person said maybe 1200 years ago, you feel that, I know, let's build a religion based on what, you know, some person who generally did the best he could. You know, so I feel, you know, and they don't, and the interesting thing is that It's not like they take from Imam Malik in other things. You know, all the things that Imam Malik would say that, oh, you reject the hadith. It's not like they take his style there. They don't seem to take his style in that. All these other things that Imam Malik did that were very controversial for other people, they don't take him in that. And they find, let's say, some odd narration transmitted a few hundred years after him that he said this. And maybe, I'm not denying, I haven't come across that, but even if he said it, so what? You know, we don't, like I said before, I do not blindly follow the words of men. Others are welcome to do so. I will weigh up their words in reason. And because at the end of the day, I'm answerable for me. I have to, does it make sense to me? Am I just blindly following people? I love Imam Malik and he's one of my heroes and I do follow his fiqh, I follow his principles, but it doesn't mean that I blindly follow him just for the sake of him being him. And Imam Malik wouldn't have wanted me or anybody to blindly follow him. In fact, it's transmitted that even, you see, he would say these things himself. And this is how his teachers taught him. So, you know, Imam Malik himself, when he was with one of his teachers and Abdul Aziz ibn Abi Salma was with him and they would take classes, and then Imam Malik said to the teacher, oh, that how come, you know, you say certain things to me, in front of me, and sometimes you don't say them in front of him, or you don't say, and he said to Imam Malik, that's because with you I know you will weigh what I say and you won't blindly accept it. So I think that's quite important. How to understand risk, assess sustenance according to Islam. Did Harut and Marut teach magic to the people of Babylon? Babylon! Alright! Right, no, I don't think... It does mention, the Quran does mention that these two figures, Harut and Marut, and most likely they were probably two rulers who were deemed to be pious. They weren't angels, but people referred to them as like angels. This is what many people, so if you read the tafsir of Ibn Ashur and other people, this is what they explain, that they weren't actually angels, but people used to call them angels because they thought that's how they were inspired by these people. And they taught certain techniques. Now these techniques go back to this thing. It doesn't say anywhere they taught them a magic that was like how you're picturing magic, like, I don't know, Harry Potter magic. It just says that they taught people how you can split people up and cause enmity. يُفَرِّقُونَ بَيْنَ الْمَرْءِ وَزَوْجِهِ. They can split up a couple. How? Like, think about it. People do it today. The kind of tactics, the kind of politics, the gameplay that people use to split people up. And this is untrained people do it. You know, they gossip here, gossip there, set people up, do this. And that's the unqualified guy doing that, or girl doing that. Imagine if you were skilled at it, and you were around the people who weren't skilled, but you taught them. The art of persuasion. Allah, Allah, Allah. The art of persuasion, people. It's quite a unique art. Who do you think is closest to you in your fiqh and theology? Well, in fiqh, I am generally Maliki, al-madhab. So I do follow the school of Medina. And in theology, I mean, I follow, I've been trained in Ash'ari thinking, but I don't blindly follow it. I take what makes sense, and I don't take the parts that don't make sense. I am also influenced by people like Ibn Rushd, the great Maliki legend of Muslim Spain, the philosopher. I'm influenced by him. As in, when I say I'm influenced, as in I like the way he thinks on certain things. He questions the Ash'aris about certain things. So I don't blindly follow people in faith, as in creed, because to say I believe this, that's stupid, because then you don't believe it. It's just dogma. You're just saying it because the person's telling you to say it. Right, somebody seems to be asking quite a few questions on wudu. Dan Harden. Alright. Wait there, let me pour a drink for myself. If you pass wind, huh? Wait there. Huh? If you pass wind near the end of wudhu whilst washing your feet. You made it all the way to the feet, to washing the feet. You made it that far. And then the wudu betrayed you. So it's like the wind was like, watch, just watch this. Wait till he gets right to that part. Then it was like, ah! That must be quite incredibly annoying. So if you reach the end whilst washing your feet, do you need to do wudu again? Oof. The tragedies. I have to say, I think, you know, this wudu and passing wind has become such a, I think it's become a kind of a habitual tragedy for Muslims, because I think so many Muslims hold in then their gas. They're like, oh, I can't let my wudu break. So they have so much trapped. So I think this one big problem, you know, this one. So I think, yeah, I mean, yes, you would have to repeat your wudu. So leave this Hasanaat, who cares? Who cares? I no care. Harden, you tosser, huh? What the hell is going on? Whoa, what's going on in the questions? ¿Qué está pasando? Deep questions coming out. Let's take some deep questions, people. What's going on? Let's take some deep. Let's do some rapid round. Yeah, let's do a rapid round of questions. I hear that my good friend Mawlana Sheikh Abdul Rahim Limbada Sahib, Vada. I hear he shared a fatwa on his Facebook page. Later on I hear he took it down. Shared a fatwa saying you can't contribute to organ donation. Hi, Vada. Bada to khair bada, hum zahar bhi pee jaएं katil. शर्त ये कि हमें बाहों में संभाले कोई. Hi. Bada means alcohol, but bada alcohol, I'll even drink poison. With the condition that somebody takes me into their arms. Allah. Right, so I hear that Limbada Sahib, Damat Barakatum al-Aliya, Shri Sheikh Limbada Sahib, I hear he was kind of encouraging that, because from next year, I think April 2020, there is going to be, it is going to be legislation that all people in England are automatically opted in on donation, and they have an opportunity to opt out. I personally encourage all Muslims, do not opt out. It's very important that, you know, with organ donations and things like this. And I've spoken about that in the past. And there are many people, including Mufti Maravia, who's done a lot of research on it. It is online, his fatwa, including Dr. Mansoor, who's done a lot, and a few other people, and you can find that. But this scaremongering of like telling people, oh my God, this is haram, opt out, this is a conspiracy of the West. Abey, yaar, ye kya conspiracy? What conspiracy? You know, when it comes to taking an organ, not in that way, you nutty. I don't mean in the madrasa way, taking an organ. Old habits die hard. But I mean, when it comes to receiving an organ, I think that these people will be first. So, right, so, but I heard my good friend Sheikh Limbada Ji was sharing that fatwa. Limbada Ji, Baaz aa jao, Baaz. This one not nice, my friend. This one make me once again want to talk to you, you know. I think, you know, someday Mufti, not Mufti, Sheikh Limbada ji should come down and share a cup of tea with me. Dostana hona chahiye yaar. I think this could be the beginning of a beautiful, beautiful friendship, you know. What is it? दो भाई एक प्याले में चाय पियेंगे. दो भाई एक प्याले. Somebody said, what is, do you like and read the poetry of Bulleh Shah? Bulleh Shah is an amazing epic poet. I do like some of it. I haven't read so much, but some of it I have read. It is amazing. I do love it. Cha, Muhammad Tawsif, doing it. Urfan, doing it. Ahlan wa sahlan. Let's take some rapid round questions, people. Rapid. Let's bring up the speed. These are all. Who are the enemies of Islam? Can you give your thoughts? I've already spoken a bit about the whole thing. What do you... where's an interesting question? Oh, yaar. Persian poetry. Some of the old Persian poetry I do love. I seem to understand a lot of the old... I don't know about the recent, but you know the old subcontinent scholars what had written like Amir Khusro, and which they sing in Qawwali and stuff like this. I read it. I seem to understand some of it, or I think I'm understanding it. I don't know what the hell they're actually writing, but are the prophets alive in their graves? Was there 360 idols in Kaaba? I don't think there were 360 idols like that, but I think there were a lot of maybe altars and things, sacrifices and stuff like that. And there were a lot of gods. I think 360 might be exaggerated. Devdas poetry. Hi. Devdas ji. कौन कम बख्त बर्दाश्त करने के लिए पीता है? Allah. People, alcohol. Because nothing interesting ever began with a fruit salad. Right, this is not alcohol, by the way. You know, some people said, Astaghfirullah, you know, this Mufti, he's got alcohol on his... Yaar, kahan alcohol? Yaar? Ye kya kahen ye dunya walon ko jo aakhri saans par bhi e'tiraaz karte? You know, they don't let a person be this. This one my drink, you know, this one no alcohol. While Ibrahim dua was not to make his house like. Is it okay to dig up the Prophet's body to check if it's rotted? Astaghfirullah. Aiden Hash? What the hell? What on earth are you smoking? Lay off the drugs. Lay off the drugs. Look, the people who pass from this world, they are in a different realm. They are no longer in this realm. Okay, nobody is in this realm once they pass away. That's it. That's the way the world works. So, Mufti Saab, can you do a drunk live? Acha, a bit whilst doing Meer and Ghalib, the dons, the legends. You know, these people are my heroes. You know, I was reading this poem of Meer. I'll share it probably one of these days on Insta. Really, you know, it's one of those heartwarming poems. You read it and he says in it, Meer, he addresses himself obviously. Meer hum milkar bahut khush hue tumse pyare. Allah. Meer hum milkar bahut khush hue tumse pyare. इस खराबे में मेरी जान तुम आबाद रहो. Allah. It's such a kind of like a heart melting kind of poem. It's very simple. I mean, this one's not corrupt or anything. He just says, he addresses himself and he says that Meer, हम मिलकर बहुत खुश हुए तुमसे प्यारे. That he calls him kind of like endearment, pyare, like my love. He says that after meeting you, I'm very happy that I've met you, my love. To himself, he says. This is hashtag self-love. And he says, is kharabe mein, in this ruins, in this world of ruins, tum abad raho. That meri jaan tum. So he says, is kharabe mein meri jaan tum abad raho. That may you forever prosper, my dear, in this world of ruins. And it's something that really, wow, like, you know, you read it and it just, you think, wah, Meer ji, wah, wah, wah. It is amazing, the parallels, the contrast between, like, the sense of hope, the sense of despair, the sense of how the endearment of himself to himself, but yet at the same time, he's only just met himself. That, you know, the Meer hum milkar tumse bahut khush hue pyare. That I've only just met you. In some ways that we never truly even get to know ourselves. But yet, that there is this connection, this yearning, that may you forever prosper. That it's just amazing. Honestly, when I read this kind of poetry, mere man ko chhu leta hai. I really get, it takes me in a different world, you know. It's like it's my kind of high, basically. हैरत हुई गालिब तुम्हें मस्जिद में देखकर ऐसा भी क्या हुआ कि खुदा याद आ गया. Yeah, kharabe here is referring to the world. Is kharabe mein meri jaan tum abad raho. That may you forever prosper in these ruins. Wah, wah, meri jaan, wah. You know, that reminds me, speaking of poem, I'll give you another poem. And I think we can maybe wrap up. On a similar note, contrasting despair and hope and things like that, you have Momin Khan Momin again. You know, our legend who said, Umar kati hai ishke buta mein Momin. That we've spent our lives loving these goddesses. These beautiful goddesses. That these women, and he says that aakhri waqt mein kya khak musalman honge. What's the point of trying to become Muslim now? But what he means by that is becoming like, can you actually become sincere at this stage? But he has this other poem, which I've said that one already, but he has this one where, once again, it's an amazing one, which really touches me. He says that tum hamare kisi tarha na hue, that you would, like, you did not end up being mine in any capacity. Tum hamare kisi tarha na hue, varna duniya mein kya nahi hota. Allah says, otherwise, what is impossible in this world of possibilities? Allah, like, look at the silver lining at the same time. Like, there's the despair, the dark cloud of, like, there's, like, you could, you know, you were not mine in any capacity. Like, despair. But then at the same time, this thing of, like, varna dunya mein kya nahi hota. You know, what is truly impossible in this world of possibilities? That everything can be achieved in this world. It's like, wow, what enthusiasm, what optimism. But then at the same time, interwoven with realism, yet in any capacity I didn't manage to obtain you. This, heart crushing, I am Momin Khan Momin. Right, honestly, these people, this is why I advise people to really look into things like poetry. Right, okay, let's take 1-2 questions, and then who are the blowers of the, huh? Oh, there's more to the question. Who are the blowers? I thought, kaun si company hai, company? Is there a hotline after that? Are you advertising on my life? Huh? Let me just jot down the number. Right, so I think there's more to that question. Who are the blowers? Are you going to name and shame? Have you no decency? Are they not the creatures of God as well? Right, let me open this question up. Who are the blowers of the knots? Acha, cha, 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 cha. He's talking about who are the blowers of the knots. In the surah, who's being referred to as those women who are practicing some kind of alleged witchcraft or superstition. So that doesn't mean it had a reality to it. So if you read the entire surah, Allah is constantly saying, look, I seek refuge in the dark. What does the dark do? Dark doesn't harm you, but it's by association. And I seek refuge in the women who blow on knots. What do the knots do? Nothing, but by association, the superstition, the gossip, the evil culture of damnation, all of these false taboos, this shirky kind of backdrop, all of that. And then Allah says, "Sharri hasidin idha hasad." I seek refuge in the envious when he envies. What does envy do to you? It doesn't do anything, but by association, the acting out. Cool. Acha, acha. It was a religious question after all. I thought it was, you were probably thinking, mashallah, people seem very tired on this. Why don't I inspire them with with some leisurely activity? Right, so Henna Tariq, oh my god, I'm late. How desi am I? You're well late, Henna. You're well late. Who are the fuqaha al-amsar who are mentioned in the Maliki books? Which fuqaha al-amsar are you talking about? Are you talking about the general? I mean, there's so many scholars mentioned in the books. Pavesa rahe shajar se umeed, Pyasa rahe shajar se umeed bahar rak, chahe char rak. Famous early. Oh, this reminds me of a mas'ala. I've got to read a mas'ala. Let's read this mas'ala and then we'll call it a night, people. So you know, some Muslims, they go through this issue of halala, which is nonsense, by the way. And I have mentioned that if you ever end up stuck in the 3 talaq mas'ala, you do not need to do halala. Okay, if you want to get back together, I believe there's always a way. That, you know, the talaq was given in ignorance, it was given in one go. There's a lot of capacity in the Sharia. You don't need to go semi-pimp your wife out for, you know, you don't need to do that just to, under some guilt of religious, some kind of, that this is what God wants. God wants, uski band baja do. God wants you to get done over. It's like, what? Why does he want that? No, trust me, he does. So in the past, the problem was when they would get the wife married off to some new guy, who, mind you, that's my career dream. To become a halala expert. I just yes, so yes, come this way. Yes, so mademoiselle, we have this problem. Okay, this no problem, this one. Where you just walk around all day in a robe and you're like an expert, you're a senior consultant. Only the senior consultants walk around in the robe. That's my dream, my dream job. How many nafal do I have to pray? This Niyaz Bandor, Niyaz. Alright, so the thing is now, coming to this, right, so people had an issue. They used to think that, oh, if I let's say I get this guy married temporarily to my wife. He's going to divorce her, obviously. After he does the after he has the intimacy, right? So, but what if he gets hooked to her? What if he's like, whoa, that was something. Yeah, I've been living in darkness all my life. This is where paradise was. Right, so what if he says, no way am I divorcing her? So, which does happen. So now in that situation, he would be stuck. So I've heard of some Mawlanas that they've done the halala, and then they've said, when the guy is come and he said, Maulvi Sahab, will you now give my wife a talaq? He said, I would, but she's not doing anything wrong, and giving a talaq just like this is astaghfirullah. Allah doesn't like these things. And the angels are like, huh? Acha? Oh, is it all about Acha? So now it's about God. So you have some of these Maulanas that then get stuck. Like they don't get stuck, they stay stuck. They say, well, I'm really liking this one, why should I leave her? So now some of the previous, in the medieval times, some of the Shafi'iyya came out with a solution. They said, this is in the Mukhtasar Qawaid Zarakshi, or Zarkashi, you can say it in both ways. Hilatun fi nikah al-muhallal. This is a loophole in the getting the halal and nikah done. He says, وَطَرِيقُهُ, and he says, the way you got to do it, he says, I'm going to tell you how to do this. He says, طَرِيقُهُ أَن يَشْتَرِي عَبْدًا صَغِيرًا, that let him buy a slave. A small slave, not like a macho. He goes, not like some kind of like bodybuilding slave. He says, but let him buy a small, weak, puny slave, right? So, وَيُزَوِّجَهَا مِنْهُ, and let him marry his wife off to his slave. بِرِضَاهَا, obviously she has to agree to it. ثُمَّ he says, ثُمَّ يَسْتَدْخِلُ حَشْفَتَهُ, that then he grabs hold of the small slave's penis and he enters it into the, he penetrates it into the vagina, and then once that's done, he then splits them. He's like, hey, that's enough. He's like, whoa, that was 1 second too much there. Right, he pulls it back out, and then what he does is he sells the slave immediately. And by selling the slave, it says, فَيَنْفَسِخُ النِّكَاحِ, the nikah automatically breaks, and with it, يَحْصَلُ التَّحْلِيل, he's managed to have the halala, and he's managed to save the situation from this guy becoming obsessed with his wife and keeping her. Imagine that poor slave. That slave would just be incredibly confused. Like, what just happened here? Like, first they bought me, and they brought me into this place, and then the guy's kind of pulled my pants down and holding my... Then I'm thinking, right, okay, I don't really bat that way. And then he's putting it into his own wife, and then I'm thinking, okay, this is getting interesting. And then he's getting all jealous and pushing me away. Like, what the hell am I doing? I'm thinking, ये drama क्या हो रहा है? Why? How do I how do I deal with this world? आदमी जिए तो जिए कैसे? This world is too much. This world is too much. So these were some of the, as you can see there, that was proper, that was like Newton level, that was proper like the Muslim genius of the faqih, of the scholar at his genius level, trying to figure out, faqih means a scholar, although it sounds here, it probably makes sense like faqih. He was using all, that was his brain on full capacity, that I've got a solution for you guys. Finally, I've cracked it. Guys, with that, let's wrap this up, inshallah. It's been awesome. No, this is actually in the book. This is in Mukhtasar Qawaid al-Zarqshi. So Badruddin al-Zarkashi is a famous Shafi'i scholar, and this is in the Mukhtasar of the Qawaid. It's actually a Shafi'i fiqh book, and they came up with it. And he says this is an amazing solution loophole we've discovered, lads. Lads. Right, guys, it's been awesome having you all on here, taking your questions, sharing the thoughts. Take very good care of yourselves, people. If you do want to reach out to me, do reach out to me. Do check out my videos on YouTube, like them, subscribe, yaar. Chalo koi baat nahi. You know, you don't need to be this tight-fisted, you know, this relax, you know, there's no harm in pressing like. Just hit it, man, hit it. Huh? Hit like. So, other than that, people, take very good care of yourselves. Somebody just asked about the earring. I answer it at the beginning of tonight's episode. So, reverse, rewind, have a listen. Inshallah, take very good care of yourselves. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.